The Illinois Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Act, also known as the SAFETY Act, is a criminal justice reform law that will eliminate cash bail come January 1st. The law has been met with mixed reviews and heavy backlash, including from founder and senior pastor of New Beginnings Church of Chicago, Pastor Corey B. Brooks, who wrote in Newsweek, quote, "These movements have all been pushed by elites in the name of helping Blacks, but not one of these people has ever visited my neighborhood to ask what we think. It's almost like we have no say, like we are some sort of social experiment, pawns without minds of our own." The pastor joins us now to discuss. Welcome, Pastor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
So tell us where you're joining from and why.
So I'm on top of the roof of a building that we made to protest the violence and the poverty in Chicago, number one, but also to build a community center that costs upward of $35 million that deals with poverty, that deals with changing the lives of criminals. I've been here now for 11 months living inside this tent behind me, and we're breaking ground on Saturday, hopefully.
That's incredible. Go ahead, Batya.
I was going to say, you write in your piece so movingly about how these criminal justice reforms that are designed to help the criminals end up sending criminals back into your neighborhood, where they end up preying on vulnerable people who are in your community. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I wanted to make a point about in the article is that these individuals are definitely criminals, and we need to see them as such. And whenever we're allowing them to come back into our community without consequences, it only damages us even more. We're already dealing with severe violence. We're already dealing with lots of crime. We've had the highest number of carjackings that we've ever seen in the city of Chicago, but yet we decide to side with criminals instead of victims. And I think this is a behavior that we're seeing not just in Chicago, but in New York. They already have experienced crime going up. And anyone who says that it's not related to that cashless bail system, they're not thinking correctly.
So, I wanted to make sure we represent what I know the other side would say, because we've had, guests on this show who are in favor of this law, and they would point out, first of all, these people have not been convicted yet, so they're, still generally entitled to due process and, really to freedom until they are convicted. And that because the cash bail is essentially keeping people locked up who can't afford to make bail, who are not necessarily the people at greatest risk to the community, right? It's not discriminating based on who is a danger, but rather just who can afford to pay.
Argument would be to that is that if you're talking about petty crimes, misdemeanors, then understandable. We understand, we get it. But we're not talking about misdemeanors. We're not talking about petty crimes. We're talking about felonies. We're talking about individuals who have been charged with serious criminal activity. And those individuals are being released back into our society to commit more crimes. Could we do something better to speed up the criminal process so that these persons who are alleged of doing these crimes could have a speedier trial? Absolutely. I'm all for that. Mm-hmm. But I'm definitely not for allowing them to come back into our community as we see consistently crimes being committed. One of the things that I would say to them is that I work with criminals. I understand the mindset and the mentality of criminals. And if you let them back into society without any consequences, commit more crimes even while they're waiting on trials.
Well, New York Attorney General Letitia James has publicly championed the state's cashless bail law, saying she's now open to making adjustments to the measure after a recent spike in violent and other crimes, and polling revealing New Yorkers' top concerns going into the midterms is this surging crime rate. This is definitely something that that people care about in their communities. And you're in the community. You're working with people who are facing poverty, who have been in the criminal justice system. I think it's always interesting to get that perspective, because the media tends to speak with one voice about what people actually care about. But the people you're talking to, the people in the community, is crime absolutely one of their top concerns?
Crime is absolutely the top concern. When you have individuals that can't go to parks because of shootouts, when you have individuals who can't walk to the store, when you have individuals who are walking to school, young girls getting raped and getting shot, that's a major problem. Safety is an issue for us in our community. And if we can't provide safety, then how can we transform these communities? How can we turn them around? In the case of New York, where you have they were all for the cashless bail system. Now there's a flip-flop. Of course there's going to be a flip-flop. When you are an elite and you don't go and you don't talk to the people who are involved in these type of situations, then you have to flip-flop. You have to come back and say, hey, maybe I got it wrong. Maybe we should rethink it. And that's consistently what we see all the time with these individuals who don't care about the victims. And I think we need to side more on the side of victims.
And your point of view, though, comes from you work with criminals as well. I mean, that is the thing, is you are deeply embedded in a community where you're seeing things from both sides. And you're saying, look, this is not compassionate to either side, because you, in the piece in Newsweek, you talk about having spoken to criminals, spoken to felons who have been released, what they told you would have happened if they had had no cash bail. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, our Project Hood, Hood stands for Helping Others Obtain Destiny. People can find out information on our website, projecthood.org, how we work with criminals. We work with individuals who are in gangs. We work with individuals who have committed murders. We work with individuals who have come out of prison. Some of them are even on our staff. They've been in prison for 30 years for committing crimes. Some of them work on our staff, and they've committed crimes in the past and served time. And I've spoken with these individuals, and they talk about how if they had been released during a time of being charged with a crime, it only would have given them opportunities to commit more crimes, especially when they think that they're going to be spending some prison time. A lot of times they're going to be trying to make as much money as they possibly can illegally so that they can take care of themselves while they're incarcerated. So we cannot give these individuals an opportunity to come back into our community, be released into our community, and commit these crimes all over again. We see this consistently in Chicago with the gun charges. We have individuals who are being charged with guns, and there's individuals who have been charged with gun charges and released back into our society, only to be charged again and again and again. This happens consistently, and this is something that needs to be dealt with. And I'm sure even the individuals, the citizens in New York, they're now looking at the situation. And I wish that Illinois would look at New York and learn that what's going to happen. And in our case, I believe it's going to be even worse because we're already dealing with a lot of crime.
Mm. Well, Pastor Brooks, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your perspective, and stay safe out there.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And we'll be back with more Rising in just a minute.